08 Bolero hours. January 29, 2026. Barents Sea airspace. Two Russian Tu-160 White Swan strategic bombers, each worth $500 million, each capable of carrying nuclear-armed cruise missiles, departed Olenya Air Base on the Kola Peninsula and turned their noses directly toward Norwegian airspace. This wasn't a navigation error. This wasn't a training accident. This was deliberate provocation broadcast in every frequency NATO monitors. The bombers kept their transponders active. They wanted to be seen. They wanted civilian air traffic controllers to panic. They wanted NATO air defense networks lighting up like Christmas trees. Russia was sending a $500 million nuclear message. The Arctic belongs to us. Test us if you dare. But what Moscow didn't know, what their pilots couldn't see, was that NATO had stopped playing the old game. The sky wasn't empty. It was a trap. And Russia had just flown directly into it. Rewind 96 hours. The Barents Sea used to be Russia's safe zone, a frozen ocean where Soviet submarines prowled unseen and strategic bombers operated without Western interference. NATO expansion changed everything. Finland joined the alliance in 2023. Sweden followed in 2024. Now the Arctic isn't Russia's backyard anymore. It's a monitored fishbowl where every engine signature, every radar emission, every electronic whisper is tracked by networks Russia didn't think existed. The game changed. But Moscow kept playing by Cold War rules, and that miscalculation was about to cost them everything. 08 due hours. Olenya Air Base. The Tu-160s lifted off in formation. Sleek, white, terrifying. Variable geometry wings swept back for high-speed cruise, afterburners glowing like twin suns against the Arctic dawn. These weren't just bombers. They were strategic statements. Nuclear-capable platforms designed to strike targets 12,000 kilometers away without refueling. Russian command knew NATO would detect them. That was the point. Test response times. Measure scramble speeds. Record intercept procedures. Collect intelligence on NATO's command structure. This wasn't a strike mission. It was a public intimidation show designed to humiliate the alliance in front of the world. Russia believed speed and surprise would overwhelm NATO's coordination. They were wrong. 0807 hours. Norwegian Air Force Operations Center. The Tu-160s appeared on radar screens like ghosts materializing in daylight. Transponders active. Identification clear. Course steady toward Norwegian airspace. No alarms sounded, no panic ensued. Because NATO had been expecting this. Within 90 seconds, two Norwegian F-35A Lightning II stealth fighters received scramble orders. Pilots sprinted to cockpits. Engines spooled. Canopies closed. At 0809 hours, both F-35s were airborne. But here's where Russia's plan started falling apart. The F-35s didn't turn on their radars. They didn't search. They didn't broadcast anything. They flew silent. Invisible. Passive. Because they didn't need to find the bombers. The bombers were advertising their own position with every radar pulse, every radio transmission, every electronic emission their systems generated. Russia thought they were intimidating NATO. They were actually painting bullseyes on their own fuselages. 0814 hours, 240 nautical miles from Norwegian coast. The Tu-160 crews felt confident. Their radar warning receivers showed no NATO fighters. Their electronic warfare systems detected no search radars painting them. The sky felt empty. It wasn't. Two F-35s were already within 40 miles, close enough to launch weapons, close enough to intercept visually if needed, flying in total electromagnetic silence. The Russian pilots had no idea they were being hunted by aircraft they couldn't see using sensors they didn't understand. This is the new Arctic warfare. You don't announce your presence. You exploit your enemy's noise. 0822 hours. Escalation. Russian command gave the order, kill transponders, go supersonic, climb to maximum altitude. The Tu-160s obeyed, transponders went dark, afterburners ignited. The bombers accelerated hard, Mach 1.5, then Mach 1.8, climbing toward 52,000 feet where thinner air and extreme altitude would defeat most interceptors. Russia believed this was checkmate. Speed plus altitude equals escape. NATO can't catch what it can't track. Or so they thought. 0823 hours. 22,000 miles above Earth. U.S. Space Force SBIRS satellites, infrared sensors designed to detect ballistic missile launches, locked onto the Tu-160's heat plumes the instant afterburners lit. The bomber's thermal signatures blazed like twin bonfires against the cold Arctic background. Satellite tracking was automatic, instantaneous, impossible to evade. At the same time, a U.S. Air Force RC-135 Rivet Joint signals intelligence aircraft orbiting over the Norwegian Sea collected every electronic emission the bombers generated. Radar, communications, navigation systems. Russia thought they were running silent. They were screaming in frequencies NATO had been listening to for decades. 0826 hours. The predators above. While Russia celebrated their supposed escape, two U.S. Air Force F-15EX Eagle II fighters had been loitering at 60,000 feet, higher than the Tu-160s, positioned like hawks above prey. The F-15EX isn't a Cold War relic. It's a digital weapons platform with radar so powerful it can track multiple targets 200 miles away and coordinate strikes with systems the Russians don't know exist. The Eagles didn't chase. They waited. Because in modern warfare, positioning beats speed. 0830 hours. MiG-31 escorts appear. Russian command wasn't stupid. They'd positioned MiG-31 Foxhound interceptors as escorts, high-speed, high-altitude fighters designed specifically to counter NATO aircraft. The MiGs activated their radars, sweeping the sky for threats. They found nothing. Because the F-35s remained passive, the F-15EXs stayed high, and NATO's electronic warfare aircraft began subtle jamming, not aggressive enough to alert the Russians, but enough to create blind spots in their radar coverage. The MiGs were flying escort for bombers already inside a kill box they couldn't detect. 0835 hours. Radar lock. Then Russia made a fatal mistake. The MiG-31 flight leader, frustrated by the absence of NATO fighters he knew had to be there, activated his fire control radar and locked onto something. A ghost. A sensor anomaly. Maybe an F-35's brief radar reflection. In NATO doctrine, a fire control radar lock is treated as hostile intent. It's the electronic equivalent of chambering a round and aiming at someone's chest. For 30 seconds, the Arctic airspace balanced on a knife edge. If NATO backed down, Russia wins the propaganda war. If NATO escalated, the situation could spiral into something neither side wanted. 0837 hours. The checkmate. NATO didn't back down. They revealed the trap. U.S. Navy destroyers operating in the Norwegian Sea, ships the Russians knew were there but assumed were irrelevant to air operations, activated a technique called multi-static tracking. They didn't broadcast their own radar. Instead, they used the Russian MiGs' radar emissions as illumination. The F-35s acted as silent receivers, collecting the reflections. The result, Aegis combat systems aboard the destroyers built a perfect, high-definition map of the entire Russian formation. Bombers, escorts, altitude, speed, weapons load. Russia was literally providing the energy for their own tracking. 0840 hours. The message, a calm American voice transmitted on open frequency. One the Russians were monitoring. Russian flight. This is United States Air Force. Your tactical geometry is solved. You are operating inside the engagement envelope of surface-to-air systems with 96 active launch cells. We are tracking you through your own radar emissions. You have 3 minutes to alter course away from NATO airspace, or accept consequences. Acknowledge. Silence. Then, from the Tu-160 lead pilot, a single word in Russian, understood. No bravado, no defiance, just acknowledgement that they'd been caught. 08:42 hours. Final escalation, but Moscow wasn't done. At 08:42, both Tu-160s opened their internal weapons bays, the doors that conceal cruise missiles capable of striking targets across Europe. NATO sensors detected the bay door actuators immediately. Infrared satellites saw the internal heat signatures. This was Russia's final card. We can still launch. Do you want to find out if you can stop us? Countdown 180 seconds until potential missile release. NATO had to decide, shoot first or call the bluff? 08:44 hours. Non-kinetic victory, NATO chose option 3. One of the F-15EXs executed a high-speed diving maneuver, screaming down from 60,000 feet, crossing directly in front of the lead Tu-160's nose at barely 200 meters separation. The supersonic wake turbulence hit the bomber like a shockwave. The aircraft bucked violently. Pilots fought for control. At the exact same moment, the U.S. destroyer transmitted a precisely calibrated electronic warfare pulse, not jamming, but a targeted signal designed to interfere with the Tu-160's weapons bay hydraulic actuators. The bomb bay doors froze mid-open. Stuck. Inoperable. Russia couldn't launch even if they wanted to. 08:46 hours. Retreat. By 08:46, it was over. The Tu-160s closed their jammed bay doors manually, reduced speed, and turned east back toward Russian airspace. The MiG escorts followed in silence. NATO fighters shadowed them to the border, then disengaged. No shots fired. No missiles launched. No casualties. But Russia had been outplayed in every dimension: sensor warfare, electronic warfare, tactical positioning, and raw intimidation. Moscow sent $1 billion worth of strategic aircraft to push NATO. NATO responded within minutes and turned Russia's own systems against them. The truth behind the story. Parts of this are dramatized. The electronic warfare details are simplified. Some tactical elements are classified and unknowable. But the core reality is this: modern NATO air defense doesn't chase. It waits. It watches, and it uses your own emissions to track, target, and, if necessary, eliminate threats before they know they're in danger. Russia's Tu-160 pushed NATO in the Arctic. The response was immediate, and Russia learned that in the 21st century, speed doesn't matter when you're flying blind into a network you can't see. Did NATO go too far with the wake turbulence maneuver? Or was it the perfect non-lethal response? Drop your take in the comments. And if you want more breakdowns of modern aerospace warfare, hit subscribe, because the next one involves stealth aircraft you didn't know existed.